Back in 2022, I made this video ranking all the worlds in Donkey Kong 64. Each one offers a unique design and character, with some flaws here and there, so let's spend some time with each one individually. Fungi Forest has always been a big deal in my eyes. It's large, yes, but there's so many meaningful and memorable events that take place in this world. Even the music is so welcoming and adventurous upon entering. There's some incredible new abilities and upgrades, but even just the location alone is a big deal. Finalizing Gloomy Galleon and moving on to here just feels like a huge step up. And once the cannon becomes available, we're finally given access to this floating, mysterious hut. We're well past the halfway point in the game, and this world breathes fresh air. Well, maybe it just feels fresher after swimming with the fish. This big world has a lot to cover, so let's get started. Thankfully, the size isn't overwhelming in comparison to other worlds. I think Rare has kept it more straightforward and easy to navigate. Most of the world is connected to this first clock room. As we all know, players will need to return to the clock frequently to change the world from day to night and vice versa. So while there are long hallways connected to other sections of the world, most of the warp pads take the players back to the clock for convenience. Since we're on the subject, let's talk about the elephant in the room: the clock mechanic to change the world to night or day. Some people are completely divided by this mechanic, and I understand why. Some areas of this world are completely blocked off and can't be entered unless the player warps back to the clock and changes the world to whichever time of day is required, then warp all the way back to continue the adventure. Love it or hate it, I think this mechanic is, at the very least, unique. For one, Fungi Forest holds a strong resemblance to Jungle Japes. It's using a lot of the same textures and backgrounds while also introducing new textures and enemies. We spend such little amount of time in Double J, so to have an even larger version of it, and with a day-night theme, is creative and memorable. But we should also consider when this game came out. Video games like Pokemon Silver, Gold, and Crystal come to mind, as they also tried working with a day and night cycle. Which is hilarious to me because these games were released just one day apart. It goes to show that ideas were spreading throughout the different series. But we're all familiar with the most famous timed events for these games, involving Eevee into Espeon during the day or Umbreon during night. You know Nintendo, they like to try out new ideas. Not saying they're the first to invent day and night cycles in a game, but you know what I mean. They take a unique idea and run with it. Meanwhile, just a couple months later, they released a brand new Zelda game that's entirely focused on time. Main story or side quest, players are bouncing around to access certain areas, characters, or actions during a specific time. So if there's a point to any of this, I guess it's this: sometimes timed events suck. Sorry. No, really, it's not always a walk in the park. I get that, but I guess it just doesn't bother me as much in this game. For older Pokemon games, the clock worked at real time like Animal Crossing. Modern Pokemon games work off of Schmeckens or something, so evolving whoever you're looking to get is an easier task. Majora's Mask? I don't know. I use a walkthrough now. My brain is small and I'm tired, okay? But DK64, you walk over, you hit a switch, then you walk back to where you were going. That's it. Agree to disagree, but let's move on. So wrapping up this main section of Fungi Forest, let's go through the world's upgrades. Finally, we're getting some goodies here. Gloomy Galleon gave us practically nothing. Visiting Cranky Kong will give the Kongs the Super Simian Slam, and while this feels as pointless as some of the Pokemon HMs for simple timed-based roadblocks, I appreciate the new blue ground pound switches and animations. For whatever odd reason, Lanky Kong isn't given the Orangutan sprint ability until the next world. And this is odd because a golden banana in this world basically requires the Orangutan sprint. More on that for a different video. Another exciting upgrade for this world can be found when visiting Funky Kong. The homing ammo makes for an incredible upgrade to the Kongs. For the longest time, players are given basic ammo upgrades, but to have ammo that locks onto targets is a game changer. Ordinarily, I just want to ignore enemies, but now I kinda want to go to town on these baddies. Speaking of enemies, we're introduced to even more new baddies. Shroom critters can be mistaken as part of the world's background mushrooms. Kind of a goofy design, but I've always appreciated how well hidden these enemies are. The killer tomatoes make their first appearance in this world as well, but more on that for another time. During the nighttime sequences, flip-flap bats will appear and are actual harmful enemies, unlike the basic background bats. Speaking of nighttime, some of the common enemies found in the daytime get swapped out for different enemies during night. Koshas make another appearance, and we're first introduced to Crossbones. I really love this detail of Fungi Forest. It seems like they really put a lot of thought into it and placed some of the more dangerous enemies during nighttime. I remember being a kid and instantly feeling less safe when running around at night. Focusing more on the world and Kongs, there are a handful of fun golden banana moments where the Kongs really get to shine. Chunky alone has a handful of memorable bananas. the minecart challenge hidden in the well, saving the worm in the apple from the mean tomatoes, the conveyor belt in the water wheelhouse, Tiny Kong collects this bean that grows into this beanstalk, and of course the exciting mini-boss fight against the spider. DK can find his Casplat blueprint behind some thorns, and I love that his invincibility barrel has another fun and creative opportunity. Diddy can jetpack all the way up to the top of the mushroom for a bonus stage barrel, and it makes it easy to explore one of the larger sections of the world, putting that homing ammo to work with Lanky and these bats. But more of these fun golden bananas are further discussed in this video. Alright, let's focus on the large room with the mushroom building next. This building is humongous, like production room big, but thankfully there are a ton of different ways to navigate it. Upon entering, the players will notice a wall of switches for each Kong to blast at. I can't think of many moments when all Kongs were needed to shoot open a switch like this. I kind of wish more of this was introduced. It feels like they're all working together. But anyways, the reward for such a thing is worthwhile because now the player can use the cannons to shoot at the very top of the building instead of slowly climbing up each floor. Another quick and dirty way to reach the top of the building is for Diddy Kong to jetpack up and activate the warp pad. The middle section of the building, both inside and out, are mostly filled with optional collectibles and enemies, besides the colored bananas and Casplats with blueprints. But one can spend a ridiculous amount of time around this mushroom building. Tiny has a frustrating bonus stage barrel to access. It isn't the most obvious to find. A little camera movement to better reveal the location would have been helpful. DK's barrel blast only gets harder and harder per world, and for some reason I wasn't having it with this one. Chunky can only access his blueprint through this hidden door during nighttime. It's fine, but I often feel some level of fatigue with this building. Thankfully, I'd say the top of the mushroom is a better time. Better golden banana opportunities, and both Lanky and Diddy have these hidden gems at the top of the building. Let's move on to the water wheel area. I'm a big fan of sections that offer a golden banana for each Kong. It makes it quick and easy to bop around as each member and clear out a room. DK and Chunky get to collaborate together with the conveyor belt, offering them both a golden banana. This kind of interaction further gives off the illusion of the 5 Kongs working together to slowly free K-Lumsy. More golden bananas can be found like the boss fight with Tiny, as mentioned earlier. Diddy and Lanky both have hidden access at the top of the building for their golden bananas. And I'm kind of cracking up rewatching my gameplay footage because I couldn't find the door for Lanky's banana to save my life. It's so dark during nighttime, I had to look up a walkthrough just to confirm I wasn't crazy. I knew there was something around here, I just couldn't see it. There's 2 other buildings throughout this section that can be accessed during nighttime. As mentioned earlier, there's the thorns surrounding the barn, which is one of my favorite sections. Besides the Casplat hiding around, DK can access one of my favorite bonus stages on the inside of the barn. The other barn in this section is located on the other side for Diddy Kong. Inside of it is a pitch-black plank maze. Can't say it's my least favorite challenge, but it's certainly not my favorite. There's not much more to say about this room with Funky Kong. I've already established the homing ammo upgrade, beanstalk, and evil tomatoes, which is about everything notable about this room. So we'll move on to the final room, the room with the tree in the center. This room can only be accessed through the hallway off the mushroom section. I've always wished that they made it perfectly connected from the main clock room, but finally activating that 4 warp pad has never felt better. For some reason, this room has always stood out to me more than some of the others. I don't know if it's because it's heavily focused on the forest aspect of Fungi Forest, while the other rooms are more focused on the fungus part, or maybe the different colored leaves floating on screen. Or maybe the fact that this hosts the torturous rabbit race. Regardless, this section stands out to me. As I've mentioned earlier and in another video, this rabbit race with Lanky Kong is a little odd, but mostly frustrating. The player will have to race the rabbit a second time in order to win a golden banana. The first time only rewards blue coins, so it makes sense that he will run significantly faster the second time. Gotta make the reward worthwhile, I suppose. It's just an odd decision to give the players the orang stand ability after Fungi Forest, not during. Anyways, no need to ramble, that's for another video. But it's frustrating enough that I don't mind the jetpack race with Diddy and the Owl. I think at this point, my hope would be that most players have a feel for controlling Diddy's jetpack and can do a decent job flying through the hoops. Finally, Tiny can shrink down and access the tree stump. Taking out all the claptraps will reward a golden banana, but Tiny will also receive a magic bean I mentioned earlier. Kind of similar to Gloomy Galleon and the Mermaid's Pearls, Tiny is given a special item that gets the players wondering, what is this for? I actually remember bits of playing Fungi Forest as a kid. The dirt spot near Funky Kong had me confused for the longest time. I'd shrink down Tiny, play her saxophone on the music pad, only for nothing to happen. And I'll never forget the light bulb moment when finally coming across this hidden room off the mushroom building, collecting the magic bean in the stump, and finally completing this challenge. That was the successful feeling of a golden banana. Maybe that's why this room stands out to me more. Well, I think that's it for Fungi Forest. This world has always been a hit to my eyes. Making such a significant move from Gloomy Galleon, it's always been one I'm excited to jump into. It's one of the most creative worlds in the game, and I'll always appreciate how the game swaps out different enemies based on day or night. Alright, but that's enough out of me. What are your thoughts on Fungi Forest? Is it as fun as a world in your eyes? Where do you land on the day-night mechanic? There's a lot to cover, so let me know your thoughts below. Take care.